This is Jessica with Amla Investments LLC here today. I want to do a review on the Wagner Flexio sprayers. This one in particular is the Flexio 690, but we also had the version that was released just before this one. These are air sprayers, or they spray paint with air force. And initially at first I thought it was pretty awesome, but as we used it a bit, there's several things about it that they really irritate myself and my husband. They're kind of cheaply made. I mean, I guess that goes to say with the price that you pay for them. They're pretty much the economy version of handheld paint sprayers. For the money, I guess they're okay until it breaks and you have to return it, which has happened to us. The motor and the body itself is okay. I don't have any problem with that. It's pretty lightweight. It has enough force to use latex-based semi-gloss paints, and the hose is pretty long. It would be nice if the cord was a little bit longer, but that works out okay with an extension cord. My big complaints are these hoses, after some use, can come loose a lot. These just fit in there, and they're made out of a material that's supposed to sort of like stick when you kind of twist them together, but if you don't really get it in there after you've used it a lot, sometimes you might be in the middle of painting and the hose just blows off. I've had that happen when I was outside on a roof and I had the motor part down at the bottom of the slope, and I was all the way up at the peak of the roof with the sprayer, and the hose blew out, and so I had to put everything down and climb down there and reattach the hose. So I guess that would be my first complaint. My second complaint was that the handle part is pretty cheaply made. It's just cheap plastic. And the last one that we had, this mechanism right here, it's sort of a hinge. The plastic snapped right off and we had to return that, and thankfully it was still within the return period. And this model is a little bit different than the one before, but it's still a similar type of a handle. I could really see that happening again with a lot of use. And the other problem with this handle is that I find the more that I use it, if I let it sit at all, this handle starts to get stuck. See, right now it's stuck. And so I'm sure you heard the pop, but I pulled back on it and now the handle is stuck in the spray position. So, see, they're just released. So what's happening is you'll go to spray and it'll stick, and then when you need to release, you're continuing to spray, and you know that can be a mess for whatever you're painting. Sometimes I have to really work this back and forth to loosen it up, and I have disassembled this and tried to clean it, and that does help a bit, but it just keeps happening. I had just cleaned this the other day. It's already sticking again. Definitely not good when you really need good trigger control. My other complaint about this is if you let this thing sit for long at all, at least with latex-based paint. It can be really hard to separate the container from the top sprayer piece, because what happens is the paint gets in here and it kind of creates a buildup, and it like bonds it together, and essentially it's like gluing it together. And there have been times when I have had to soak this entire thing in hot water and tap on it with different objects trying to loosen it, and it's taken me 30 minutes before just to get this thing separated. Even my husband has problems with it sometimes. And then the other complaint is that this piece here, this tube with this gasket seal, it's not a very good design. The seals tend to go bad after a short period. This gasket thing slips onto this piece here, and the more you put this top piece on and off of the container, it wears on this gasket. So you can end up with a bad seal around this piece, or you can end up with a depression along the outer ridge from the lip of this can. And so if you are constantly tightening it and untightening it, especially if you do it really hard, you're going to wear a little depression in this, and then eventually the gasket just stops working and it won't spray, nothing will come out. And it took us a while to figure out that that was actually the cause of our sprayer not working. This wouldn't be so bad if they made it easier for you to actually buy these replacement gaskets, or if they gave you some extra, but they only give you one. They give you one of these gaskets with the whole kit, and nobody locally sells these gaskets. Lowe's doesn't sell them, Home Depot, Menards, and in fact, we were only able to find one website that actually sells those gaskets, and we did go ahead and buy them. They're cheap, but it's not even a Wagner website. It was some random website, and you know, you would really think that Wagner would make some option for you to buy those replacement parts. And definitely you would think that Lowe's or Home Depot would have these things there for you to buy, especially considering their other sprayers. They have all kinds of parts and pieces and things for it. So that's one big annoyance. And then the other problems that we have with it is, so when you're spraying, because this is an air forced spray, you can actually probably see, let's see, you probably see there, see that little bit of paint sticking out at the tip right there over my finger? So the air causes this spray to dry on this tip, and it builds up, and so every couple of minutes you're ending up with these globs of paint on here, and I am constantly having to wipe it off on my pants or my shirt, because when you get the buildup of paint on here, then you start getting a splatter pattern. It splatters all over your whatever you're painting, and it's quite obnoxious. And then the other problem you have is that paint will drip out of this into this oval opening here, and it will kind of cake up and dry, and that also will cause splattering. And this piece here rotates to change the angle of the spray. And when you have it like this, and this hole or this hole is vertical, you have the same problem you have here. You've got paint that drips out and it ends up in these holes, and air comes out of here and air comes out of here, out of these holes. And so when they become blocked, your spray pattern is all messed up and you end up with splatters. And so that's just really a horrible design. So you combine that with this trigger malfunctioning, and the valve does not close all the way. So when you release the trigger and you intend for it to stop spraying, you end up with little bits of paint dripping out. Even though you're not spraying, you don't want it to spray, it should be off, there's still little bits of paint coming out, and the paint is just accumulating around here and in this hole and causing problems for you. It's a terrible design. And then on top of that, so you get all this stuff in here dried up, and you end up having to take it all apart to clean it out. And you also have to clean this out if you let these things sit for very long. You'll get buildup, and so you have to take this apart. Now, taking it apart, it's not really like rocket science or anything, it's just annoying. So you take this piece off, and then you have to unscrew this ring here. And you want to before you do that, you want to unscrew this, separate the two, and pull the trigger back. That will release any paint that's in there, because otherwise when you take this off, I'm trying to show you in steps here, but when you take this off, paint will spew out all over you. And they don't really tell you that in the instructions. So then, oh, I'm struggling here. So then that piece comes off, and you have to clean this piece off. So you can probably see here where the paint has, let's see how to get this, the paint has dried on the inside of this thing here. And so now I have to go and scrape all that out and clean it up, or it's going to spray all over the place in a horrible pattern. You can actually see where it dried on the inside there. That will cause problems. So then you've got this little ring here. This doesn't really cause any trouble. And then you've got this piece here. This can sometimes be a little difficult to get out, and sometimes I have to use a flat blade screwdriver just to get this thing out, which always makes me nervous because this thing's so cheaply built. I'm always afraid I'm going to break it. So this piece comes off, and then you can see you've got a little gasket in here. Now sometimes paint gets into that little gasket and causes problems, that red ring. So you gotta clean that little red ring out, and it's got this groove, a deep groove in there, and you have to find something really small to get the paint out of that. And down inside of here is more paint buildup, more dried up paint. So you see that? That's awful. And that's just from sitting there for, you know, a little while, not really any excessive amount of time. So I'm going to have to take some sort of tool. I'm going to have to wash that out and get the debris out. I've done this a million times now. And here, in this tube, we get buildup of debris. It's like, even if you filter the paint, for some reason it chunks up in there, and it dries or collects in there. And there's really no way to get to it except for through here, or if you take this off, so you pull that off, and then in here, if I can see in there, is a little bar, and when you pull the trigger, I don't even know if you can see this or not, I'm not sure, but when you pull the trigger, the little bar that's down there, it moves, and I can always see that there's buildup in there, and I suspect that's part of why the trigger gets stuck. So I've got this little wire brush that they gave us with this kit, and I stick that wire brush down in there, and I work it up in there real good, and I'm able to get the chunks out. But then, after a little while, I end up having to do it again. And, I don't know if it's just we need to clean this regularly with, like, paint thinner or some sort of, like, paint cleaner or what, but it's definitely definitely an annoyance. But so when you're cleaning this thing, you've got to deal with all those problems. You have to periodically clean this area off because the paint buildup contributes to the handle sticking. You gotta wash this out with hot water, and you've got to wash all of this out with hot water. You got to get all this buildup off of here. If you don't do these things, it causes problems for you later. You have to take this out and wash it. You got to get the paint out of the tube. Then you got to wash that container there. Now I will say that the container plastic and this plastic here is actually made out of some sort of non-stick plastic, because the stuff does come off fairly easily in hot water. But it's time consuming and annoying. And then, you've got all these other little pieces and parts that you have to clean. You gotta periodically clean this, or this thing sticks. And you've got to clean this stuff off because it'll just turn into big chunks and it gets in your way and nothing works smoothly. Same with this. You'll get paint blobs stuck on here, and you've got to get that off. So overall, after having, actually we had 3 of these, this is the 3rd, and I would say after having 3 of these, my husband and I decided we're never buying one again. We actually ended up going out and buying a one of those bigger airless units that is more high powered and has a long extension wand and a big motor on wheels. I can't right now remember off the top of my head what it was, but it's so much better. Way, way better than this. But I guess I would say if you're really, really on a budget and you just can't afford something better, and you don't mind having to do all this cleaning and messing around, and you're kind of delicate with it because this thing can break, then, I'd say I guess it's worth the money. It's better than hand painting. By far, it's better than hand painting. This makes really quick work of projects. I mean, it cuts your time in half, if not more. But I do also want to point out, I almost forgot that the the spray pattern of this thing can be a bit troublesome at times. See, that handle just popped out. We use this a lot for spraying trim. You can actually see the trim that we've been spraying over there, and trying to control the amount of paint that comes out and not end up with horrible runs and dripping has proven to be a bit difficult. The spray pattern is such that it's not always a super smooth finish. It's more of a like a matted finish. And I noticed with our other new sprayer, we get a much better finish with that. So I guess you know, you get what you pay for. But again, it's still better than hand painting. So really, I guess it's a matter of preference. But for us, I don't think we're ever going to buy one of these again. I think we'll stick with the more advanced airless sprayers. And anyway, I hope this helps you guys in making your decision on whether or not to buy this, or to find out what's wrong with your sprayer, or if anyone else is having the same problems. So good luck with your painting.